All right. This is a video for AP Bio, um, period 3 on green days. I'm just going to quickly go over some things that we weren't able to get to um, today based on review, but also these should be things that you take notes on with the packet that I gave you when it comes to your family tree. So when making a family tree, we have to understand the mechanisms for how your family tree is actually coming about when it comes to um, the traits that you are seeing in all the people within your family. And each of you in your family initially started off as a zygote, which was a fertilized egg with that sperm fusing in the two haploid sets of chromosomes, 23 individual chromosomes in the sperm and 23 chromosomes in the egg, coming together to make a diploid set of chromosomes. And each of the zygotes that formed you, your parents, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, each contained a sperm and an egg with a combination of whatever that parent's maternal and paternal chromosomes were. So what does that mean for your express traits or anyone's express traits? You are going to inherit and display genes and traits that are found in the chromosomes of your parents. So there is no way that you can express traits that aren't themselves coded for and or expressed in your parents. But there's a big but to this. Each individual has 2 copies of each gene on the 23 sets of chromosomes, and you're only going to inherit 1 out of 2 chromosomes for those 23 pairs. That means that you might have differences in the copies of genes that you receive and inherit and express as compared to your mom or dad. This is also complicated because each gene can have a variation within it, and we call this an allele. An allele is just a variation of a gene that causes a trait to have a modification. There can be 2 or more alleles for any gene. For example, there can be an allele for eye color that codes for brown or blue or green or gray eyes, and you can have blonde, red, brown, or black hair that are all coded for by genes with different versions of that gene, which is an allele. All of this really means that when you inherit and express traits as an individual, you inherited those from your mom and dad. But your mom and dad randomly assorted their genes during meiosis to make sperm and eggs, which means that there is a chance that you inherit genes and traits that themselves aren't physically noticeable in just your mom or dad, which is why we need to go beyond a family tree. So when we look at pedigrees, we often can see individuals within generations 1, 2, and 3, and whether they are biologically female or male, and whether they express a trait or they don't express a trait. So when we talk about shades, often black is affected, while white means no expression. But there's also different types of traits that display different types of inheritance patterns. And when we talk about inheritance patterns, we're really talking about the physical expression of a trait when we look at an individual as compared to the rest of the population or gene pool. So a dominant trait is a trait that tends to be binary, and this is where one allele or trait is expressed and the other, if inherited, is masked. And we only see the masked trait be expressed if the other allele, which we call the dominant allele, is absent. So if I'm looking at flamingos and there is a trait for feather color, we might have an allele that codes for pink feathers and purple feathers. And when a purple flamingo and a pink flamingo mate and reproduce, their individual offspring have a pink physical expression. The pink allele is expressing itself while the purple allele is not. The only way we could have individual offspring that are purple would be if a purple flamingo bred with a purple flamingo and there were 2 copies of the purple allele. If a pink flamingo with a pink allele and a pink flamingo with a pink allele reproduced, they would obviously have a pink flamingo as well. But there's shades of difference amongst types of inheritance patterns, and two of them are codominant and incomplete dominant. If we look at a red and white flower, if we produce or reproduce a red and a white flower and they produce a pink flower, this is called incomplete dominance. And that means the two alleles or the two traits are expressed together in some sort of a hybrid intermediary trait that is somewhere between the two genes and traits. We can think of this as the Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold. So red and white combined makes a pink flower. If the flower expresses a petal shape of red and white, then we're probably seeing a codominant trait where both alleles are being displayed simultaneously throughout the individual. Both alleles are dominant to each other. It's not necessarily just a dominant and recessive trait. So let's review where we were. When you were born, you inherit a set of chromosomes and genes from your mom and dad, and that makes you in terms of your genetic traits and your inherit in the expression of your physical traits. This means that all of your traits and all of your genes came from your parents' chromosomes, but your parents have two copies of each gene, and they might have variations known as an allele within each of those traits. This might mean that when you actually look at your physical expression and the traits that you express, you might not just be a strict copy of your mom and dad, but you might be a variation of their traits. We can see family trees express types of inheritance patterns that are dominant, where one allele masks the other, and incomplete and codominant, where the alleles are either some hybrid or a combination of each. I hope this has been helpful. Please email me or see me with questions. Take care.